What if the cup of coffee you thought was keeping you alive was pushing you closer to the hospital bed? Across America, recalls have already swept through 48 states, exposing toxins, mold, pesticides, and even deadly bacteria in brands millions still drink every single morning. Seniors on fixed incomes and working families scraping by are the ones hit hardest. How many more pacemakers will fail after a strong brew? How many more kidneys will collapse under the weight of hidden heavy metals? And how long will companies keep hiding behind smiling baristas while slipping poison into paper cups? The CDC already tracks over 128,000 hospitalizations from foodborne toxins each year in the US, with older adults making up the largest share. If recalls are already spreading coast to coast, what's next? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. Today we expose the shocking truth behind 7 coffees you must stop drinking right now. Number 1. Starbucks. Walk into a Starbucks and you're not just buying coffee, you're buying a tiny slice of certainty in a world that never stops changing. The paper cup feels like armor against the chaos. The green siren on the logo whispers, "You're safe here." For countless older Americans balancing pills, pensions, and price tags, that promise of consistency is priceless. But what if that very promise is the trap? What if the comfort they're sipping each morning is actually a slow-acting betrayal, quietly eroding health while draining wallets? How many more mornings will be swallowed in blind trust before we realize the cup in our hands might be loaded with risks instead of relief? The evidence already brewed to the surface years ago. A California court exposed that Starbucks coffee contained acrylamide, an industrial chemical byproduct, at levels up to 4 times higher than state safety guidelines. Acrylamide is no harmless speck. It's been tied to cancers and nerve disorders. And yet, no warnings ever made it onto the cups. The company leaned on loopholes, staying silent while customers unknowingly gulped toxins with their breakfast muffins. Isn't that like selling umbrellas that actually leak water when it rains? The betrayal cuts deepest for seniors whose bodies can't process chemicals as easily, turning every latte into a gamble that their health might lose. But chemicals are just the first layer of this bitter roast. Starbucks marketing shows lush hillsides and smiling farmers, yet reports from Brazil, Ethiopia, and Guatemala reveal something far darker. Child workers bent over in 100-degree heat, handling pesticides already banned in Europe years ago. Internal emails later leaked that executives had been warned, but rather than pulling beans, they let the warnings sit like burnt espresso at the bottom of a pot. The company's ethical sourcing claims ring hollow, and one can't help but wonder, are we paying for fair trade or just subsidizing exploitation dressed up with fancy Italian drink names? Even their so-called innovations have gone sideways. The highly publicized Oleato olive oil-infused line promised heart-friendly benefits, but within 6 months of its launch, more than 370 incident reports poured in about nausea, diarrhea, and stomach cramps. Baristas joked it was a colon cleanse in disguise, but customers, many of them older, on medications, weren't laughing from their hospital beds. And still no recall, no apology, just a quiet shuffle of the menu boards as if burying evidence under the froth. Is this what progress tastes like? Sickness passed off as sophistication? Their syrups aren't any kinder. New toxicology reviews in 2024 flagged sucralose, the sweetener inside those sugar-free pumps, for messing with insulin sensitivity and gut bacteria. Lab tests on their matcha revealed it was bulked up with cornstarch and food dye, stretching profits while shrinking trust. Even the almond milk lattes carry risks, with consumer reports finding oxalates high enough to aggravate kidney problems. Each hidden hazard piles onto the last until what sits in the cup is less comfort and more chemical roulette. And yet millions keep lining up, muttering to themselves, just one more won't hurt. Isn't that the cruelest trick of all, that resignation is exactly what corporations bank on? Looking to the future, the picture turns darker still. Recalls have already touched 48 states. But what if the next scandal reveals even more sinister truths? Pesticide residues, undisclosed additives, or hidden side effects that regulators quietly brushed aside. Will Starbucks double down on denial until the lawsuits pile up higher than their Christmas cups? Or will a breaking point finally come, where customers see through the branding to the rot beneath? These questions matter because the longer we sip in silence, the deeper the betrayal becomes. Alternatives exist, though the system wants you to think otherwise. Local roasters like Counterculture Coffee publish pesticide tests and show their bean origins with pride. Dean's Beans rejects child labor and backs it with fair trade certification. Even brewing at home with a basic machine can mean more safety, less cost, and real peace of mind. The choice isn't easy when budgets are tight, but the harder question is this: why are working Americans forced into a corner where safety costs extra, while betrayal is sold cheap on every street corner? Starbucks may still hand you a cup with your name, but perhaps the only name it deserves now is deception. Number 2. Dunkin. Walk into a Dunkin at dawn and it feels like America's comfort food in liquid form. The orange and pink sign promises speed, affordability, and a little jolt to push through another long day. For many older folks on Social Security, that steaming cup at $2.79 is the only small luxury that still fits the budget. But what if that very cup, cheap, familiar, dependable, was hiding toxins, mold, and even lead? How many retirees, shift workers, and grandparents are unknowingly drinking their way into hospital wards while the brand smiles and says, "America runs on Dunkin"? Check out, the numbers aren't small. In late 2024, Food Integrity Watch flagged over 160 Dunkin' stores across 13 states for stashing pre-ground coffee in damp, mold-prone closets, some left sitting for weeks. Lab tests found ochratoxin A, a fungal toxin tied to kidney failure and memory decline. Seniors already struggling with high blood pressure or early dementia were drinking this daily. The FDA inspected 47 stores, issued quiet, corrective actions, but never told the public. How many cups does it take before kidneys begin to scar? How many mornings did families sip poison believing it was harmless comfort? And then there's the corner cutting. A whistleblower in Queens filmed workers reusing filters up to 8 times and mixing stale coffee into fresh brews. The footage went viral, but corporate called it isolated. Yet leaked supplier audits showed 23 more stores failed hygiene checks in the same quarter. One Florida location even had cockroach droppings by the grinder, still no shutdown. If this were your home kitchen, wouldn't you throw everything out? Why does a billion-dollar chain get to shrug off roaches and reuse filters while customers swallow the consequences? The water adds a cruel twist. Consumer Environmental Health Alliance tested Dunkin' brewers in 6 cities. 3, including Milwaukee and St. Louis, had lead levels above 5 parts per billion. Lead, the neurotoxin we've spent decades trying to banish from paint and pipes, served hot in a paper cup. Seniors, the very group most vulnerable to neurological decline, may be quietly sipping lead-laced lattes every morning. How many strokes, how many memory lapses can be traced back not to age, but to a corporation saving pennies on water filters? People keep drinking because the alternative feels worse. At 5 in the morning, choices are slim. A recent survey found 41% of low-income Americans over 60 pick Dunkin' mainly for price. They know Starbucks is out of reach and local roasters don't open before sunrise, so they gamble with their health, whispering to themselves that one more cup won't matter. But numbers suggest otherwise. Chronic low-level lead exposure affects millions, while kidney-related hospital admissions linked to mold toxins already number in the thousands each year. Looking forward, the irony deepens. Dunkin' announced plans to expand into hospital cafes and senior centers by 2026 under a community care program. Imagine, the same coffee already tied to mold and lead being sold inside medicals. Facilities to patients whose kidneys and brains are most fragile. Will we see a rise in ER visits as seniors unknowingly drink contaminated brews in the very buildings meant to heal them? Or will regulators finally grow a spine, forcing strict water filtration and freshness rules across franchises? Both futures seem possible, and neither inspires comfort. It doesn't have to be this way. Joe Coffee in New York triple tests beans for mycotoxins. Verve Coffee Roasters invests in strict freshness and worker care. Cafe Mom sources pesticide-free beans while funding indigenous farmers. Even a cheap French press at home with clean water can protect your body better than a value menu cup of sludge. But the heavier truth is this: Dunkin' has taught us to accept filth disguised as familiarity. So ask yourself, what's more frightening, the mold and lead in the cup, or the way we've grown numb enough to keep drinking anyway? Number 3, McDonald's. For some, that dollar and change McCafe cup feels like the last bargain left in America. Seniors on fixed incomes shuffle into McDonald's at sunrise, clutching coins or wrinkled bills, and leave with what feels like a little comfort in a paper cup. It's fast, cheap, and dependable. Or so it seems. But peel back the golden arches and the glow fades quickly. What's being poured into those styrofoam cups isn't just coffee. It's a slow drip of chemical trickery, machine filth, and international shortcuts that regulators keep tiptoeing around. How many retirees have taken pride in stretching a buck, only to find out that their smart buy might be buying them hospital time instead? Start with the beans. McDonald's promises 100% Arabica, but investigations by the European Food Watch Consortium found shipments from Vietnamese and Colombian suppliers where ammonia washing was standard practice. Imagine beans so stale they need a chemical spray tan to look fresh. Whistleblowers even joked about it as makeup for moldy beans. These industrial recovery tricks don't just hide rot, they leave residues, and seniors sipping daily are the ones who pay the price. Shouldn't truth in advertising mean more than airbrushed coffee beans? Worse yet, toxic traces keep showing up. In 2023, the Global Chemical Risk Network tested McDonald's coffee and found chlorpyrifos, a pesticide outlawed in Europe for its link to nerve damage and memory loss. Out of 5 samples, 3 contained residues. Legal in the US? Technically. Safe for customers over 60 whose brains are already more vulnerable? Absolutely not. McDonald's own demographic reports say the biggest share of McCafe drinkers are people over 55. How twisted is it that the very group most at risk is the one most targeted? And even if the beans were flawless, the machines betray a different horror. In 2024, employees leaked photos of brewing units caked with brown slime, hard water crust, and even insects. Over 220 stores in 12 states were named in a class action complaint. Thousands of customers may have swallowed bacteria-laced coffee without ever being warned. For an older customer with a weakened immune system, that's not a gross inconvenience, it's a direct threat. Why clean the machines when profit per minute is the only metric that matters? Then comes the water. Many McDonald's franchises hook brewers to basic municipal pipes, not filtered lines. In aging towns across the Midwest and South, those pipes still carry lead. In Flint, Michigan, a consumer lead test in 2022 found McDonald's coffee with lead levels of 8.3 parts per billion, 5 times higher than Starbucks or Panera in the same area. Lead doesn't just taste metallic, it chips away at memory, blood pressure, and long-term health. How many seniors already chalk up their brain fog to old age when their morning cup may be silently lacing them with poison? And the future doesn't look any brighter. McDonald's announced a 2025 partnership with FNC Trading to slash coffee costs by 12% worldwide. The catch? FNC is infamous for sourcing parchment-defective beans from Honduras and Sumatra, low-grade imports that no European watchdog would ever allow. What will cheaper beans mean? More bleach baths, more hidden pesticides, more hushed-up complaints? Will the FDA ever demand full transparency on origins and cleaning processes, or will another whistleblower have to risk their job to warn the public? The next scandal isn't if, but when. You don't have to settle for sludge disguised as savings. Better Buzz Coffee in California tests its water weekly. Kicking Horse Coffee in Canada rejects chlorpyrifos outright and keeps its supply fair trade certified. Even Laird Superfood Coffee offers beans pre-tested for toxins and blended with prebiotic fiber, a safer choice for aging digestion. The options exist, though corporations want you to believe otherwise. And yet tomorrow, millions will line up for a $1 refill, muttering, "It's just coffee." But is it? Or is it a chemical compromise brewed in a dirty machine, poured into the hands of those who deserve better? If this is how we serve the generation that built the highways, raised the families, and fought the wars, what does that say about us? And more chilling, what do you think McDonald's will cut next in the name of saving 12%? Number 4. Deathwish Coffee. The name was supposed to be edgy marketing, but today it sounds like prophecy. The world's strongest coffee promised raw energy, a drink so powerful it could carry truckers through midnight highways and retirees through sleepless nights. For under $3 a can, people thought they were buying strength. Instead, many were unknowingly gambling with one of the deadliest toxins on Earth. In 2017, the FDA forced a nationwide recall of Deathwish Nitro Cold Brew after tests revealed the risk of botulinum toxin contamination. That isn't some fancy lab chemical. It's the same paralyzing agent weaponized in biowarfare, capable of shutting down lungs within hours. Thousands of cans were already sold before the alarm was sounded. How many older Americans, chasing alertness, were instead swallowing paralysis in a designer can? Botulism thrives in low-acid, oxygen-free containers, the exact conditions Deathwish created when canning its nitro brews. The FDA later confirmed the company skipped a critical sterilization step recognized across the industry. In plain English, they gambled lives to shave costs. Experts called the outbreak risk significant. For younger adults, the gamble was reckless. For seniors with weakened immunity and slower recovery, it was practically a death sentence waiting to be triggered. How many grandparents cracked open a can to stay awake for bingo night, never realizing they might be sipping a biological weapon? But even beyond botulism, the caffeine levels themselves are alarming. Some Deathwish servings pack over 470 milligrams, almost 5 times the hit of a Red Bull. In 2023, watchdog groups logged at least 112 ER visits tied to extreme coffees, with Deathwish leading the tally. A Florida retiree collapsed mid-game at a community hall after her pacemaker couldn't withstand the surge. The story made local headlines, then vanished. How many similar incidents never make the news, brushed aside as just age instead of corporate recklessness? For a brand that brags about pushing limits, isn't this proof that they're pushing their customers toward hospital beds? The irony is brutal. Deathwish markets rebellion, but what it really sells is exhaustion wrapped in danger. Its loyal base is made up of the most vulnerable: night shift workers, long-haul drivers, and older Americans forcing their bodies to keep going in a system that doesn't let them rest. The company insists it has fixed safety protocols, but the future is murkier. As long as their selling point is being the strongest, the line between energy and overdose will keep blurring. Will the next recall involve another sterilization failure, or will the next scandal be a confirmed caffeine-related death? Either way, it's not a matter of if, but when. Consumers deserve strength without poison. Biohazard Coffee also delivers high caffeine, but submits every batch to independent microbial testing. Four Sigmatic blends coffee with mushrooms to ease spikes and shield the immune system, ideal for older drinkers. Or simply grind organic equal exchange beans at home and brew bold without rolling the dice. The question is no longer whether Deathwish is edgy, it's whether customers should keep acting as crash test dummies for its marketing stunt. What's more rebellious? Buying into a skull-branded gamble, or choosing health over hype before the next tragedy brews? Number 5. Folgers Coffee. For decades, Folgers has sold more than coffee, it sold a feeling. The red tub on the shelf promised routine, nostalgia, and that catchy jingle about mornings being brighter with their brew. For retirees and working-class families trying to stretch every penny, Folgers seemed like safety in a can. Cheap, familiar, and always available at Walmart or the local grocery. But comfort has a bitter aftertaste when it masks danger. Beneath the warm commercials of smiling grandparents pouring mugs for their grandkids lies a darker truth. Folgers has been repeatedly flagged for toxic heavy metals, mold toxins, and chemical residues that would never make it past European customs. The insult cuts deepest because the brand knows exactly who it targets: seniors and low-income households least able to fight back or afford alternatives. The numbers are chilling. A 2021 Clean Label Project review of 147 coffee products found Folgers among the worst, with measurable levels of lead and cadmium. A single cup brewed from their classic roast carried cadmium close to California's Proposition 65 daily safety limit. Cadmium is linked to brittle bones and kidney decline, problems millions of older Americans already struggle with. Consumer Reports later confirmed high traces of lead in Folgers instant coffee, the same neurotoxin banned from gasoline decades ago for shrinking children's brains. Now picture it working its way, drip by drip, into the daily routine of seniors whose memory is already slipping. How many cases of just getting old are actually the silent effect of a brand that pretends to be harmless? The mold problem is no less terrifying. Aflatoxin and ochratoxin A, fungal poisons with proven cancer risks, were detected in multiple Folgers products in 2022 screenings. These toxins thrive when beans are stored in damp silos, often in tropical countries where Folgers sources cheap bulk crops. In Europe, shipments with those toxin levels are seized and destroyed. In America, they're ground, sealed, and sold for $7.99 in a cheery red container. Is there any clearer message that U.S. seniors are treated as second class compared to European shoppers? Even the decaf is poisoned by irony. Folgers relies on methylene chloride, a solvent flagged by the EPA as a potential carcinogen, to strip caffeine. While legal in the US, residues have been found in the final product, so the retiree choosing decaf to protect a fragile heart may instead be sipping a different kind of risk. Isn't that like swapping aspirin for arsenic? The choice Folgers offers isn't safety, it's a new problem wrapped in the promise of relief. In 2023, the CDC reported over 128,000 hospitalizations tied to foodborne toxins in the US. With seniors hit hardest, coffee isn't the only culprit, but experts warn contaminated beans are an under-recognized contributor to kidney and liver decline. Meanwhile, J.M. Smucker, Folgers' parent company, spends millions airing ads of serene mornings with retirees. Those very retirees may be the ones quietly paying the price in doctor bills and hospital stays. The future looks darker still. Climate change is stressing soils in supplier countries, causing beans to absorb more heavy metals and grow more vulnerable to mold. Folgers' dependence on low-cost bulk beans makes it especially exposed. Will cadmium spike even higher in the next harvest? Will aflatoxin levels climb until lawsuits force the truth onto a label? Or will regulators continue to look away while seniors keep pouring another cup? For a brand built on nostalgia, the road ahead smells less like breakfast and more like betrayal. Safer options exist. Mount Hagen Organic Instant Coffee, imported from Germany, meets strict EU standards and USDA organic certification. Purity Coffee in the US third party tests every batch for mold, metals, and pesticides, gaining a following among doctors and athletes. For shoppers on a budget, Don Francisco's organic beans at Costco offer cleaner sourcing at only a small price difference. Compared to the long-term medical bills Folgers may be brewing, those options could be the true bargain. So the question lingers, how many more mornings will Americans spoon Folgers into the filter before they connect the dots between what's in the cup and what's happening to their bodies? Is this really coffee, or has Folgers become the cheapest delivery system for toxins hiding in plain sight? And when the illusion finally shatters, will anyone at Smucker's admit that what they sold was never comfort, it was betrayal with a jingle? Number 6. Black Rifle Coffee. Few coffee companies have cloaked themselves in patriotism like Black Rifle Coffee. With ads drenched in flags, rifles, and freedom slogans, it promised working-class Americans, especially veterans and older men, that every sip was an act of loyalty. But beneath the camouflage of branding lies a disturbing brew of toxic residues, false promises, and political entanglements. For many retirees who thought they were supporting integrity and service, the reality is they've been sold betrayal in a bag. Lab tests in 2023 by Global Clean Foods found residues of paraquat and glyphosate in beans tied to Black Rifle's bulk lines. Paraquat is so poisonous that even low-level exposure has been linked to Parkinson's disease, already a looming threat for millions of seniors. Glyphosate, meanwhile, has been the center of billion-dollar cancer lawsuits. In Europe, beans with these residues would be seized at customs. In the US, they were roasted, bagged, and proudly sold under the Black Rifle logo. No recalls, no warnings, just patriotic packaging hiding global shortcuts. How many older Americans poured their morning cup not realizing they were swallowing chemicals that could sabotage their health? The politics only deepened the unease. ProPublica and the Intercept investigations uncovered donations routed through political groups that ended up linked with extremist causes. Internal memos described the backlash as a brand amplifier. Outrage wasn't an accident, it was part of the business model. For retirees who thought their dollars were supporting veterans, discovering their money may have fueled division feels like being drafted into a war they never agreed to fight. The deceptions don't end there. In 2024, a class action suit in Texas accused Black Rifle of advertising some roasts as single origin, while internal records showed blends from at least 3 countries, including plantations tied to forced migrant labor. For customers raised on honesty and hard work, being lied to by a company draped in patriotism is the cruelest kind of fraud. Health risks lurk as well. A VA-affiliated survey in 2023 found nearly 19% of veterans reported adverse reactions, insomnia, palpitations, severe acid reflux, after drinking Silencer Smooth and CAF blends, each packing over 300 milligrams of caffeine per cup. ER physicians in Kentucky and Oklahoma recorded 22 incidents in 1 year where Black Rifle was cited before tachycardia episodes. For seniors on heart medication, that isn't a quirky side effect. It's a direct ticket to the hospital. The future looks harsher still. Climate stress is pushing pesticide use in Latin America upward, projected to rise 35% by 2030. If Black Rifle continues chasing the cheapest suppliers, chemical residues will climb. At the same time, its polarizing branding risks alienating mainstream retailers, likely forcing deeper cost-cutting at the farm level. Which scandal comes first? A recall after paraquat spikes, or a boycott as politics backfire? Either way, ordinary Americans will be left paying the price. Better paths exist. Veteran Coffee Roasters in North Carolina sources pesticide-free beans and donates transparently to rehab programs. Lavazza's Tierra line offers Rainforest Alliance certified beans rigorously tested for toxins. Or go simple. Buy from Cooperative Coffees, a farmer-owned collective, and brew at home with a pour-over kit. The real question is whether Americans will keep letting companies wave flags in one hand while selling tainted imports with the other. Are we honoring service or being used as pawns in a branding war? When your morning coffee hides poison and betrayal, ask yourself, what else are we blindly drinking? Subscribe now. Stay awake.
Thanks so much for sticking with us to the very end. If you like this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe so you won't miss any of our daily updates. And now feel free to check out some of our latest and most popular videos showing up on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next one.